Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be continuing our election profile series by taking a look at a very interesting district in Northern Virginia, Virginia's 10th congressional district. Now, looking at this on a map at first glance, this is not exactly a district you would think of as very competitive. Back in 2020, the old Virginia 10th congressional district voted for its incumbent, Jennifer Wexton, by about 13 percentage points. But there's a lot of different dynamics at play this year, including the candidates running in this race, as well as the district lines themselves and what we saw last year back in 2021, that incline me to say that this district could potentially be competitive in November. So we'll be taking a look at some of the past election results for the 10th district, looking at it a bit more closely, and then finally, why I think this district can get pretty close. But before we begin, please consider subscribing down below if you're new and liking this video down below if you enjoy. So anyway, let's get straight into it. So back in November of 2020, as we pointed out earlier, Virginia's 10th congressional district went to its incumbent by about 13 points or so. Now, Jennifer Wexton actually ran behind Joe Biden, who on the presidential ballot won this district by 19 percentage points. So Jennifer Wexton actually ran a fair amount behind Joe Biden in her congressional re-election. Now, if we go back to 2018, when this district flipped from red to blue, Jennifer Wexton only did slightly worse than she did in 2020. She won with 56.2% of the vote to incumbent Representative Barbara Comstock's 43.8%. Now, this was actually the first House race called on the night of the 2018 midterms, at least the first flip that was called. So this was pretty indicative of a pretty massive blue wave that we saw in the state of Virginia. Not only did the 10th congressional district flip, but we also saw the 7th as well as the 2nd flip as well. But this is the least competitive of these potential toss-up districts in Virginia. If we take a look at Virginia's congressional maps as a whole, at least the new ones, of course, we look at the 10th congressional district that in the old map was a Biden plus 20 district. Now it has moved to about a Biden plus 18 district. Now, one of the reasons why I think this is important is because on the surface, this is a district that really shouldn't be competitive at all. I mean, Biden won it by about 18 points or so. But we're going to take a look at this district's history, and you'll find that it's a lot more complicated than meets the eye. And I think in many ways, Democrats sort of maxed out their gains in Virginia, at least for the next couple of cycles, because I think the 2020 election provided a very unique dynamic. Again, all of the down ballot Republicans did better than Donald Trump. The state of Virginia is more of an anti-Trump state, if anything, and less so of an anti-Republican state. Now, it is noteworthy, of course, that Barack Obama won this state back in 2008 and 2012, but he won it by significantly slimmer margins than Joe Biden won it back in 2020. Now, if we take a look back at the 2016 election, Barbara Comstock won her re-election to the House by about 5 percentage points. Now, this is pretty impressive given the fact that Hillary Clinton actually won this district by around 10 percentage points. So that's an extremely impressive improvement on Donald Trump's performance in the district. And that's really emblematic of Northern Virginia as a whole. Donald Trump was kryptonite to Northern Virginia and the rest of the Virginia suburbs as a whole. Now, this was a trend that sort of is replicated nationally. Donald Trump did very poorly in suburbs compared to Mitt Romney and previous Republicans, but his strength, of course, was in the rural areas. The thing is, in Virginia, suburbs are the vast majority of the population centers. There's not a lot of people that live in these rural areas, and Nova and the Richmond suburbs and the Virginia Beach area make up a huge chunk of Virginia's overall population. You know, going back to 2014, for instance, Barbara Comstock winning this district by a safe margin. You get the picture. This was once a reliably Republican district that is now a blue district. And that's mainly because of the shifts we've been seeing in the district's main population center, Loudoun County. If we take a look back at the presidential results from 2020, Donald Trump lost Loudoun County by a significant margin. He lost it by about 25 percentage points. Now, that's a huge difference to the results in Loudoun County just as recently as 10 years ago, back in 2012, where Mitt Romney only lost this county by about 4 points. So Loudoun County has shifted dramatically to the left, more so than the rest of the Nova counties. I mean, Prince William County, Obama got 57% of the vote. Fairfax, Obama got about 59, but Loudoun County had the most dramatic shift to the left. I mean, if we take a look back at 2020, Loudoun County is barely voting to the right of Prince William, and Prince William shifted to the left but not nearly as much as Loudoun County did in comparison to 2016 and 2012. So this is the heart of the congressional district, and of course, if we look at the detailed results here, you'll get to see really how much of an impact Loudoun County actually does have on the 10th congressional district. Because looking at it, Jennifer Wexton got 60% of the vote in Loudoun County, did about the same in Fairfax County, and ultimately, lost Frederick County and Clark County by large margins, but, in comparison to the rest of the population, they really don't have much of a sway, hence why she ended up getting 56.6% of the vote, despite not really doing well in these rural counties, because the vast majority of the district's population is in these segments of Prince William, Fairfax, and Loudoun County. So looking ahead, of course, at 2022 in this congressional district, there are a number of things that are noteworthy. If we take a look back at last year's Virginia elections back in 2021, Glenn Youngkin only lost the old 10th district, which, mind you, was actually bluer than the current 10th district, by about 4 points. So, the new 10th district, you can estimate maybe he lost by about 3. Now, one of the reasons why I think this district is in reach, candidates aside for a second, is the fact that there is no top of the ticket votes in Virginia. There is no Senate election. There's no gubernatorial election. There's nothing above the congressional races on the actual ballot themselves. So that actually would help the Republicans, in my opinion. It gives Democrats a little bit less energy. Obviously, if there was a Senate race in Virginia, I think you certainly would see a lot more energy from Democrats. And again, given some of the polling we've seen recently, Democrats are more energized than they were a couple of months ago. But Republicans are still favored to win the House pretty overwhelmingly. Not in terms of their actual district gains, but in terms of their possibility of actually winning the chamber. It's very, very high. And, going through the 10th district, it would be a huge upset if a Republican were able to win here. But given Glenn Youngkin's extremely strong performance, it's certainly possible. Now, the Republicans in this seat have nominated Hung Cao, who is a military veteran, and running a very similar style campaign to Glenn Youngkin himself. He's very focused on the economic kitchen table issues, which really resonate a lot with Northern Virginia voters. But he's still relatively conservative on social issues and, economic issues. He's just portraying himself as much more of a suburban moderate who's focused on a lot of these economic issues. And Jennifer Wexton is not exactly the strongest incumbent herself. As we looked back in 2020, she underperformed Biden by about 6 percentage points in 2020. And given that this is going to be a tougher year for her in a slightly redder district, she could potentially be vulnerable in a Republican best case scenario. And I have to stress that because there will be people who don't watch this video who think that this is some sort of wish cast or something and say that I'm predicting that the 10th district is going to flip. I don't think that's the case at this time, but I do think you could see a relatively close result in this race that, in a district that Biden won by an incredible amount back in 2020. So you could see certainly a single digit margin, but perhaps you could see even 6 to 7 points in favor of Wexton, which would be, a huge improvement for the Republican Party. But of course, in a best case scenario, Hung Cao might actually be able to pull off an upset, provided he does have the proper fundraising and provided the national environment is actually on his side. Now, if we take a look at how he actually won the nomination, it was through a firehouse primary, which the GOP in Virginia has been utilizing a lot. They started doing this last year with the gubernatorial primary, which turned into a convention, which is essentially what this was. It allows the most passionate Republicans to vote in these races. And these are people that really are paying attention to politics. And this process really is able to filter out more far-right, unelectable candidates in Virginia. I mean, if we did not have this primary system going on in Virginia, Amanda Chase would have been the Republican nominee, and you would not have seen this sort of red wave come over Virginia. Republicans would not have won the House of Delegates, and they certainly wouldn't have won the other 2 statewide offices. So these primaries are a big deal in Republicans actually doing better in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Now, overall candidate quality in this midterm, I think, is a huge factor. I think Republicans are lacking in a lot of their top-of-the-ticket candidates, but I think in the state of Virginia, Hung Cao, certainly Jen Kiggins in the 2nd district are incredibly strong candidates, and I think they're going to surprise a lot of people with how close they actually end up making these races. Now, again, I want to stress at the point of making this video in early September, I don't necessarily think Hung Cao's the favorite, but that certainly could change. Again, I said the same thing about Youngkin back in August, and, lo and behold, once September and really October came around, we saw a huge shift in the momentum. So unless there is some sort of economic catastrophe in the next month or two, there's a huge downturn, Republicans start to do a lot better in the generic ballot, you very well could see a flip in the 10th district. And again, I think it's a lot less likely than it is likely to happen. But I still think with, again, Hung Cao, I think being an incredibly strong candidate, the district being the way it is, Loudoun County shifting a decent amount to the right from 2020 to 2021. If we just take a look, it swung 14 points to the right. And this is a county that's rapidly growing. Again, Hung Cao partly was nominated to help appeal to voters that the GOP really wasn't able to reach out to. Asian voters, highly educated voters, and I think his background is really perfect for reaching out to those communities. So if any candidate is going to do that, I think Hung Cao would be the Republican candidate. And again, Jennifer Wexton did worse than Biden, about 6 points worse in the district than Joe Biden did. So it really goes to show you when you have a strong Republican and a weaker Democrat. Again, that's what we saw in the governor's race last year. That's what happened. Terry McAuliffe was a weaker candidate. He made a lot of gaffes. Of course, that famous gaffe about education really lost him the race, but he really wasn't the most energetic and charismatic candidate. And Glenn Youngkin really brought a lot of energy and passion to the race, and ultimately was able to thread the needle between the MAGA base of the Republican Party and the more college-educated Romney establishment base of the Republican Party. So we'll ultimately have to see how this race actually ends up going. For now, I still have said it's probably likely to lean Democratic. Maybe we'll make a video talking about the 7th district sometime later this week or next week. But I'm going to be making a number of additions to this playlist, not just with House districts, but of course Senate and governor predictions as well, so I can get a deeper dive in a lot of these races, because it's already early September. We're getting really close to the midterms, and there's a lot of key races I want to analyze more in depth with this election profile series. Anyway, thank you all for watching this video. Please leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, again, thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.